time. But I've done enough of my spieling. I know that we're here for some cool game speedrunning, so please give another warm hiat as we move on to The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, as I pass it over to 64-bit Link. Take it away.
Yep, hello everyone. Welcome to Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword Any Percent. This is the Wii version, and we're going to see all the glitches, well, one really big glitch that is exclusive to the Wii version. That's going to be really exciting. So before I say much more, let me introduce my commentators, or I'll let them introduce themselves. So go ahead, Pippi.
Hello, I am Pippi in a top hat. I also run this game, and I am here to watch all of the things break. I like it when things break, and hope that Uwu wins. Uwu is best file name.
Hi, I'm your average Link, or Yal. I also run this game, and in the past couple of weeks, I have been kind of pulling my hair out, picking apart this game, with the decomp working on practice tools for it. But it can't hurt to see one more any percent run, I suppose.
Yeah, so I think at this point, I think we're about ready to cut off the file name incentive, so...
You got it. Let me check that one last time. And thank you to everyone who donated towards that. We raised about $276 just for that file name bid war alone. But the winner at a solid 150 is the Groose. It is Groose, Groose.
You know what? I'm just proud of Uwu for getting on the ballot. Groose is a really harsh competitor.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we cannot stop the Groose, but likewise, we cannot stop this run, so I'll give a countdown. So starting from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Good luck, good luck.
So, we're gonna start out. We are doing this run in hero mode, which means that we can skip all of these cutscenes and save like probably 2 hours plus just make this run possible at all. And so there's a few other advantages that we have in hero mode that we'll get to in a little bit, but the first thing I'm going to do over here is talk to Fledge. And so this is going to set a value in memory that is going to be important later. And yeah, the other thing is you're going to notice that the text is going to be in Japanese. That is because the Japanese has text, it scrolls significantly faster, or just has like requires fewer characters, so the text goes significantly faster. And so yeah, I think yeah, so maybe Pippi can explain Remlet Jump.
So this trick has many names. I personally like to call it Final Boss Skip because it's the final boss of my speedruns. 64 is gonna do a strange little jump there that looked like nothing, but that was a very clean trick. That skips actually like about a minute of just talking to our professor there, who is still talking to us. We can't skip all of it. But it skips a solid like 40 seconds to a minute of camera pans and text, and instead we can just do a funny jump and go up here to rescue this little cat thing, which is not actually something that's required in a casual completion of the game, but like 64 said earlier, this also sets a flag in memory, so it might not be required for you, but it's required for us.
Yeah, if you're familiar with the concept of Chekhov's gun, he has an entire armory in Skyward Sword speedruns.
Chekhov's
so make sure you pay attention to anything out of the ordinary, including this save.
Yep, so we're going to save our game, and then we're going to go ahead and do the first major glitch of the run.
It was jumping off a pole.
Yeah, so we took some damage there. A little unfortunate, but we'll go ahead and try this again.
I think you're supposed to go the other way.
Oh yeah. The game told you that you should run up to the top of the goddess statue. I think it was in Japanese. I might be making stuff up.
I might have caught Zelda's name in there somewhere, and oh,
Here.
Game
this what's supposed
over.
to happen?
Oh, well, I'm going to go ahead and hit reset after hitting continue.
Luckily, there's a reset button on the console, so resetting this game is quite fast and involves
Whoa.
screaming.
Yeah, so this is the game's major glitch called Back in Time. It allows us to control Link on the title screen, and we will make extensive use of it.
What?
Because it lets us manipulate the game quite a bit.
It's also contractually obligated that every time there's a Skyward Sword showcase, you have to make the same joke.
Yeah, we've been
about
doing it
Back
for
in
years.
Time.
That last thing that 64 was doing is commonly in the community referred to as killing post, because it is a post that is just tall enough for Link to die. Very convenient, actually, that you can die there, because we do need it to activate Fit.
I can't believe I'm witnessing this. This is so cool.
You'll get to see it 12 more times.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll be tired of it by then.
Don't worry, we do more stuff in Back in Time. Like, pick up the sword. You definitely get to keep this sword for realsies, right? Right?
Well, we can't see
Right?
it, so it's clearly not real.
Oh, darn it.
Did you have to
Yeah.
buy a version of the game that has this giant watermark in the center? It's blocking the screen. I can't see what's happening.
Don't worry, if you play enough of this game, you stop noticing it.
It's only because we're playing on stream.
You-
If you were just
you
playing this
can-
locally.
You can always tell when someone speedruns this game because they turn the TV off after they're done and there's just a burn-in of this logo.
Oh my! It's lined up with the crest. I never even noticed that before. But now that you mentioned it. Alright, yeah, so striking this crest here, placing the emerald tablet. Fun fact, I believe you essentially always have this tablet. It just, like, you can only ever use it once you have the goddess sword anyway.
It's
Yeah.
basically the game never checks if you actually have the tablet. It's just it just like will always insert it.
Yeah, so what 64 is doing right now is something called reverse bit magic, or an RBM, as we like to call it. So essentially, the game does a revert at the moment that you hit start on your file. And anything that we do on the title screen that isn't interacting with the save statue is going to get undone the moment that he hits hit start on a file. But that is when it happens. And then there is the fade out animation that happens after you hit start on your file. So if you can make any kind of change after you've already completed the revert, then that change is going to stay. So what 64 accomplished by hitting start during that cutscene was he hit start, and then during that fade out animation, placed the Farron pillar on his map. So when we go outside now, we should see confirmation that the Farron pillar is out there. And also, what's in here?
Wow.
The Emerald Tablet?
Yeah.
You could
We also
called
have someone in chat asking how many glitches in this game are shared with other 3D Zeldas. So Back in Time is shared with Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. In fact, the reason it's called Back in Time, even though it doesn't seem to have anything to do with going back in time, is because it was originally discovered in Twilight Princess, and the person that discovered it thought that because the state of wherever they were on the title screen was earlier in the game than where they were saved, I believe they were saved in Arbiter's Grounds, they thought it took them back in time, so...
Yeah, it's not a very descriptive or accurate trick name, but it stayed for Twilight Princess, and it has stayed for all of the other games where it is available, and it happens to just be the most useful in Skyward Sword.
Yeah, so I think maybe we can briefly talk about stamina management.
Yeah, so um, in Skyward Sword, they introduced a stamina mechanic that they eventually also carried over into Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. In this game, one thing that makes it unique is that your stamina does not drain at a uniform rate. Whenever you're at the last quarter of the meter and it starts beeping at you, it drains half as fast. However, it still refills at the same rate. Um, so it's usually optimal if you're going for a long stretch of time and you don't have any stamina refills to only recharge up to the first quarter and then start using it again.
Yep, so now we're heading up to Waterfall Cave here. And I think here, yeah, if we have, like, any donations here.
Yeah, I believe we have a donation I can read off here. Let me take a look. We had a $10 donation from Anonymous. There was no comment, but I appreciate the generosity all the same. That did go towards our last loser standing incentive for repo. Just want to remind everyone, we do have that incentive open. That is currently at about $57.76 out of 350, and that is, if I recall, to create a battle royale situation at the end of the run where the runners and the entire party attack each other to see who the last person standing is going to be. So after all that hard work, they're going to destroy each other, and I think that's hilarious. You can also contribute it towards the open bid war for Uncanny Cat Golf to not only select the character that we will use, but also whether or not we'll be using unregistered Hypercam 2 quality graphics.
Gosh, unregistered hypercam's a throwback.
I feel like to really cinch the deal, it needs to also include like a very slow vertical 30-second credits crawl on a video that's less long, it has less length than the credits scroll itself. Like a 30-second credits for a 15-second video.
Okay, so right back there, I copied my file onto the file 3 slot, and that's going to be important coming up. So now we're going to proceed. We're going to rescue the Loftwing here. But note that the file that I copied was right before we rescued the Loftwing, because that's going to be important in about a minute and a half.
Yeah, the important thing to remember if you're following along at home is that File 3 hasn't rescued a bird. No bird rescuing.
Yeah, so here we're going to enter the Loftwing tutorial. Get used to seeing this. So Zelda's going to talk to us about using the about how you fly with the Loftwing. And just imagine this with the title screen plastered over it. Because you will be seeing that.
We have that?
You won't even have to imagine.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, there's not really much to this tutorial besides just advancing the text and moving slightly after like the first set so that the second set starts up.
Yeah, but coming up, I am going to be saving at this save prompt coming up, and then I'm going to be attempting to side hop out of the cutscene trigger, and I have 2 frames to do it.
Yeah, this is a 2-frame trick with no real audio or visual cue. How do we feel? Oh, Link was feeling
Unfortunate.
lazy.
However, I get to show off a really funny trick here as the backup.
Yeah, unfortunately, you only get 1 chance at that, but very fortunately, the backup is hilarious.
Yeah, so we're gonna basically head over here, and so Zelda's gonna point out the Loftwing again that we haven't rescued, but there's these barrels here. So I'm gonna pick up this barrel and I'm gonna throw it a couple times.
Maybe if we demonstrate enough strength, the game will just let us into back in time.
Owie!
Oof.
Yeah, so yeah, we just get to get run over by the barrel.
Grandma got run over by a barrel.
Yeah, you might think, why don't you just go back into the cave and then die to one of the enemies? For whatever reason, you can't do back in time in the waterfall cave.
Yeah, there are certain maps for which it does not work. Um, Unfortunately, Waterfall Cave is one of them. They tend to be the smaller maps.
But yeah, this is probably the most complicated back in time sequence. So here, I selected file 2, I close the menu, and now I'm going to save. So that's going to duplicate the information from file 3 onto the blank file. And now I'm going to also save file 1. File 1 has rescued the Loftwing. That's going to load in the fact that I rescued the Loftwing. And now I'm going to go ahead over here and I'm going to dive off this this platform back here. And then I'm going to start my file at a specific time.
Are you writing this down, chat? There's going to be a test on it later.
And that is going to put me into the sky.
Importantly, with the information that was on file 3 because of the
Yeah.
dupe earlier. So that means that what this has accomplished is basically we have a file that has not yet saved the Loftwing. Remember, file 3 hasn't saved the Loftwing. But we're in a state of the sky that normally happens when you have saved the Loftwing. And as a failsafe, the game has it so when you watch this cutscene with Vi near the Farron Pillar, you get the ability to dive off your Loftwing, just in case you missed the other trigger that gives you that ability. And also, very
no.
nice death warp there.
That bird killed you with startling efficiency.
Yeah, so, and then by death warping, it's going to put us back to where we had last saved file 3, which is right before rescuing the Loftwing. So, we're going to be rescuing the Loftwing a second time.
Yeah, except this time, as I mentioned before, we have the ability to dive off the Loftwing. This is normally impossible when you're playing the game, because either you're just learning how to save the Loftwing and the game doesn't let you dive off, or you've already completed all of the first part of Skyloft. So that means that you can go ahead and take advantage of a exploit in this area that you might not think of.
Yeah, so there's these boundaries to the Loftwing tutorial here, and I just hit it, but if I dive off the Loftwing, that boundary does not apply to Link. It only applies to the Loftwing. So I'm going to dive over here, and I'm going to take some damage off of this zipper here, because we're going to need to activate back in time a little bit, and then we're going to dive into the Farron Pillar, which normally we can't quite reach from the tutorial boundary.
It only applies to the Loftwing, so...
Yep.
And now we are landing for the first time in the surface with this wonderful cutscene.
Yeah, if anybody wants to donate a lot of money to charity, which of course we highly recommend for a charity marathon, that's kind of the goal, might I suggest picking an amount of money, generally kind of low, and donating per death. Don't worry, it'll add up fast.
So, the common theme you're going to see throughout this run is basically enter an area, save, and then die and activate back in time. And this area is no exception.
Essentially, because we don't have the tunic, the Sealed Grounds area is kind of in a primitive state that doesn't have a lot of things, and we can't progress through the temple to get through it. Although even if we could, at any percent, we want to do something different anyway.
Yeah, so, contrary to what you might think, all of what we have done so far is actually, been kind of slow. You could get to the surface in theory faster doing things the intended way. However, we have succeeded in getting to the surface with very specific file setups available to us, which 64 is going to take advantage of immediately and is going to be integral to the rest of the route. Essentially, what we have accomplished is the ability to get into the sky back in time. So that means we're taking this lovely title screen that somebody at Nintendo designed just for us. They wanted people to appreciate this title screen. And we are going to bring it with us all the way into the sky. And if you can bring it with you into the sky, you can also bring it with you into Farin. We cannot bring it into Eldin or Lanayru. As it turns out, the areas are too large. It will crash the console immediately because, hey, did you know that this feature of having a bunch of extra assets plastered all over your screen and distracting your view is actually very strenuous on your console, and a lot of things will crash. So we're hopefully not gonna do any of those today. But we will go to Farin. Farin's a much smaller map, and thus leads to no problems as long as 64 manages his files correctly. Don't worry, he knows what he's doing.
You actually, if you could get to Lanayru, you could go to the mines, like the first part, without crashing. The problem is just that it's so far away that you can't reach it
Yeah.
from this state of the sky. I've been recently... Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, now you're gonna start to see some magic happening. Remember when we set a bunch of flags earlier? Yeah, a log appeared.
That was
That's what we were
Fledge's
doing.
doing.
Yeah, thanks, Fledge. But sorry, continue, yeah?
I was just gonna say, I've been recently looking into a route for all dungeons if you have a moon jump cheat, and part of that is doing some back in time that goes to Lanayru. Because you can use moon jump to get extra height to make it all the way over. But alas, not possible in the normal game.
So for all of this section, 64 is actually going to be a little bit extra careful about not looking at particular files at particular times. Because, fun fact, if you were to open file 1 while facing certain directions right now, it would start playing a cutscene of a door opening. It's very funny and loses a bunch of time. If you do it twice, it takes away your ability to control your character on the title screen, and it's a ton of time loss, so we're gonna not do that. But instead, we have saved file 1 at that statue for safekeeping. We are looking away from the cutscene, and at this Octorok, who I believe is named Lloyd. And, oh my goodness, you've died.
Yeah,
You died
rip.
on the title screen.
Yeah. So, now what this is going to accomplish is there are a lot of flags like that log that goes down to Farin are just evaluated like basically as soon as that flag is set, basically in normal gameplay. But there's some flags, like there's a vine heading to Deep Woods that is set only set on load, and so by that death warp is going to allow me to set to allow this vine to be down, and thus I can get to Deep Woods. And notably, I have not gotten the slingshot, which is what you normally would need to get into this area.
Yeah, if you
Yeah, we
remember
will
on Skyloft,
not be getting that.
on Skyloft, we went into an NPC's house and judged her furniture. That was why, so that we could have this vine down. And saving the Remlet at the very beginning of the run allows these doors to open up.
Yeah, so basically 64 just did some wiggling around with files, which used cutscenes to skip the entire Deep Woods map, and now not only are we inside of Skyview Temple on our actual file, we're about 2/3 of the way through it, but you might be noticing that a couple of assets are kind of missing at the moment. There's supposed to be like a Boko there and a spider and stuff like that, so we have to open a door and look away and come back for it to load in those assets so that we can complete the dungeon. Luckily, there happens to be a door right here. Neat door.
Yeah, so what happened there is he started file 3 and then skipped the cutscene, which triggered the entrance, like entering into the dungeon for the first time, which is called a reverse bit warp.
So,
it's okay. Fortunately, in this game, void outs do not do any damage, so
yes.
you can retry this as many times as you want. But what that meant is that the coordinates of file 3, which was saved at a statue on Skyloft during the Back in Time sequence, were applied to Skyview Temple, and it happens that those coordinates are like basically 2/3 of the way through the dungeon, so you skip. Importantly, you skip the things that required using the slingshot. You skip needing to get the beetle. And you can get to the boss key chest here without any items.
Yeah, it is very important that, since we didn't get the slingshot, we actually will be completing the entire route item list, because, Skyward Sword is a little quirky in that it kind of treats the B wheel that holds your items as if it were an item that you picked up simultaneously with picking up the slingshot. So, if we were to go pick up the beetle, the game would soft lock. Because it would go, you got the beetle, I don't know where to put it. So we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna get bombs. We're not gonna, oh no, the vines in this game suck, just a reminder. You're not gonna get any items. We're also not gonna see any of the places where you would get any of the other items. So, it's really just we're skipping bombs and the beetle.
Yeah. These vines are ever challenging to anybody who tries to run this game.
A Tetris block.
They're at least, I can say they're at least better than the ropes that you can swing on in some of the submarines in Wind Waker. Had to deal with those recently for Randa.
That's the infinite debate, isn't it? Who has the worst ropes? The 3D Zelda community?
Hey, there we go. Alright.
Wonderful.
And now we're inserting the H.
Thank goodness it doesn't reduce your health every time you fall off the vines.
Yeah, like Skyward Sword is like, I think the only game in this series. No, Echoes of Wisdom, I think also. Skyward Sword and Echoes of Wisdom are, to my knowledge, the only games. I mean, there are probably more, but the only ones that I'm aware of where you do not take any damage when you void out and respawn.
Maybe they kind of were like self-aware of how weird the controls could be at times.
Possibly.
Alright, so here is Irahim 1. The first phase is pretty much scripted. You're just sort of manipulating him to hold his hand out in the other direction, and then doing some quick spins to deal some damage. And now it's RNG. Ooh, very nice early snipe on him. This is very RNG dependent. He can pose like he did just there. That's very good RNG. Oh, he's posing again. He can summon darts. Thank you for demonstrating. You suck, Irahim. And he can also charge, which is a bit slower than posing, but still makes him open to deal damage to him. So we like charging as well. That was a very nice G1. What was that, like 3 sets of darts?
Yeah, 3 sets of darts, and you got the initial opening jump slash.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, which is, yeah, the initial jump slash is just RNG based on whether he jumps back or not. So I got the good RNG there. Yeah, ideally you don't get any darts, but like that, you're usually gonna get some darts. Ideally the darts that you get are anything but vertical, because vertical darts will always force Girahim to jump back when you slash them away.
You'll also notice that 64 has neglected to pick up a heart container, and you might think that that's terrible marathon safety. Why are we doing this? Well, actually, Yao mentioned earlier that we started file 3 to get here. We're playing on file 3 right now, but we will be finishing the run on file 1. At some point, we will be transferring all of the progress on file 3 over to file 1, but only the progress we care about. We can't transfer things like health total. So picking up that heart container would exist for a while and make it harder to do things like back in time where we have to reduce our health to 0, but would then not help us when we get to like Gauntlet and have to do big scary things. Oh no.
Yeah. Um, where the main goal that we're trying to do is we need to enter the Lanayru region, so we're just trying to get the Amber Tablet, and we're using file 3 almost as like scratch space to do that. Because it will help to have a file in file 3's like final resting place, so to speak. Because once we're done with Earth Temple, it'll be helpful to have some of the flags that are set in there. So we just route it such that we're doing the progress for the first 2 dungeons on file 3 instead of file 1.
Yeah, so now we're doing this back in time sequence simply to get ourselves back to the goddess statue. So like we've done before, to enter Skyview, we're going to do what's called a reverse bit warp, where and since we saved our file at a save prompt, it's going to just put us in the beginning of the area that we enter. So once I go ahead and start file 3 and run into the god statue, it's going to start us right there. If we were saved at a statue, it would then load us at those coordinates, which is why when we entered Skyview, it put us deep into the dungeon.
Yeah, we want to do it like this because, for one, there is a cutscene after the dungeon where you talk with Machi, who is a Kikui you were supposed to have saved earlier, but we skipped over. And also, I don't even know if you'd be able to fly back to the statue normally, just because of how like the file is set up. So this accomplishes getting file 3 into the statue to place the ruby tablet. And file 3 also, I don't know if you saw for a split second there, Link was putting on the tunic. Basically, normally in the first part of Skyloft, you're supposed to place the emerald tablet and then you put on the tunic and then you go start your grand adventure. Because we skipped over that section earlier, we didn't have the tunic originally. But instead, by placing the ruby tablet the normal way, the game is like, oh, you haven't placed a tablet yet. I'm going to give you the tunic now. So now file 3, we won't get to see it until we actually start playing with it, but file 3 now has the tunic.
We're also currently... Oh, continue, sorry.
Yeah, so here I'm going to go ahead and save file 2 at the statue, but I selected the statue with file 3, so I loaded some information from file 3, but then I saved file 2, which is going to load in the loft wing. And then, because file 3 has a hero's tunic, I can instantly activate the loading zone from the sky with it.
And just wait until we plug in the second cartridge to get access to files 4 through 6. Then things get really interesting.
That would be pretty helpful if we had more file slots. There's a couple things that we can't do, like there's a trick we'd like to do in all dungeons, but in the current optimal route we can't do because we don't have enough files to work with.
Yeah.
If we had extra files, we could have a much safer backup for Wing Ceremony cutscene skip, but...
I have to imagine there's been at least one instance where you're late in the run and you go to save over a file and you save over the wrong one and you're just sitting there going, oh, no.
There are very few of those instances that would actually kind of bork your run. Often you can fix most of the problems if
Oh,
you
that's
know what
good.
you're doing. But there are those scary couple of things that's just like, oh god, what do we do about this? My information is just gone.
Yeah, things get more dangerous generally if you're doing a copy or a delete.
Yeah.
Um, because whenever you do a save in back in time, it's not actually overwriting anything because it's using the same, like you're saving file 2 over itself, for example.
I hope
Um,
this makes sense. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I mean, yeah, that was basically it.
I hope this makes sense, but do you find because something I'm observing as you're doing this run is not only the colors and the aesthetic of this game being very vibrant, but the movements, like everything Link does, all the camera movements are like way snappier than I was expecting. Do you find that it makes you like your own movements on the controller that you just feel compelled to be snappier because of the way the feedback is in the game?
I don't know if I've ever considered that. By the way, we're going through a zipper rock right now. Um, just calling our bird out of bounds and now backwards through a zipper rock. Um,
Jeez.
don't worry, he'll turn
Eventually,
around eventually.
yeah, eventually.
Hey, come here, Loftwing.
Yeah, the nice part
Um,
is that the longer you stay in here, the more speed boosts you get. So
Yes. Yeah, 64 is just placed us out of bounds on file 3 in the Elden region. That was a quick travel method right there. Didn't actually get us to Elden that much faster, but it did skip like half of Elden or more. A lot of
yeah,
No,
Elden.
we're just in the region part of Elden region.
Yeah.
yeah. Um, if
We're
you'll
going on a
notice, you may have noticed like earlier, we took this kind of seemingly odd detour to go to Farron first. The reason is we want to have file 3 saved specifically at that statue in sealed grounds because it puts us out of bounds, and that's not something that we could do with any of the statues on Skyloft.
Ah. Okay, I mismanaged my stamina there. It should be, like, I'll just have to be a bit more careful, but it should still be fine.
Yeah, luckily
I
this is one of the few parts of the run where we do have a bit of extra health to play with, so there's plenty of backups.
Yeah, in the cutscene after placing the ruby tablet, um, you are in lore, like normally in the game, sleeping from night to day, which restores your health. So we got a health refill back up to 6 hearts.
But yeah, I don't know specifically if the art style makes me more snappy when I play this game, but I can tell you that I do get very snappy just because this is all being done with motion controls. Um, if you didn't know, Skyward Sword's the one with motion controls. There's a lot of literal wrist snapping happening. Hopefully not snapping in the breaking sense, but like, flick of the wrist all the way, all the way.
I know one amusing thing that can happen is if I have my like smartwatch, it's on my left arm, right? So if I'm ever rolling a lot, which is it's shaking the nunchuck, my watch would be like, "Great, good job on you for staying active." It's like,
This is legitimately
this
not
game
a
is a whole
terrible way to
workout.
maintain arm muscle, is playing this game.
Yeah, so now we're gonna uh a little bit later, but we're still entering an area and activating back in time. So this is actually when reverse spit magic was first discovered. This is the first sequence that Jim announced the discovery with. So we're going to be getting ourselves into Earth Temple early. And so here we're actually going to be sleeping in back in time. Because in this game you can sleep in any bed. And so you make it nighttime. And then it's very importantly, I need to leave with file 1 or file 2. Because if I were to leave with file 3, the game would crash.
Yeah, most of the states of Skyloft would crash in back in time. It's fortunate that the one that you start back in time with, I mean, maybe not fortunate, it kind of has to not crash for the title screen to work, but that state does not crash, neither do some of the nighttime layers. Um, and yeah, now by performing that RBM, we can enter Earth Temple.
So 64 is immediately going to... We've turned the camera around to manipulate these platforms, and we're immediately going to make friends with that Keese over there. His name is Archibald C. Yeatington, and he is a Keese, and we are going to yeet him. So we do not have a projectile that we can conveniently aim upward. However, for whatever reason, while you can't aim a Skyward Strike, which is a projectile, upward manually, if there is an enemy above you and Link is targeting them, Link will aim the Skyward Strike at the enemy. So what 64 is trying to do right now is get Mr. Archibald in between him and that rope up there. Ooh, just a little bit off. Don't worry, we can retry this. But we're trying to get Archibald in between Link and the rope that is like next to the door, to the right of the door. And now we're just exiting and re-entering the room to respawn our Keese friend because we accidentally murdered him. But if we can do that, you'll see the Skyward Strike will go through the Keese and right into that rope, which will allow us to cut all 3 ropes and bring the door down and be able to access the rest of this dungeon. You are, of course, intended to do this with the beetle, but reminder, we don't have a beetle. What's a beetle? What's an item? What's an item?
This is also another benefit of playing on hero mode is that when you get the goddess sword, the game's like the spirit of battles from your previous adventure are still surging through, and your Skyward Strike is at max power. So you retain the power and properties of the
nice.
Skyward Strike from the True Master Sword from normal mode, which means it's very strong, and it also travels much farther than a normal Skyward Strike. And I do not believe that would have reached on normal mode.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it would not have. Yeah, the normal mode Skyward Strike is like pitiful.
Whereas the hero mode version, because the damage is the same as the actual True Master Sword, is 4 times stronger than the sword we have right now.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna damage myself back down because I death warp to quickly get back to the start of the dungeon after I failed Kisi the first time. And we're gonna save and yeet ourselves into the lava.
This has been Linky Yeet. It's not that hard of a trick. In fact, you can do it at home if you open up a copy of Skyward Sword. It's just a jump slash into some soup.
And now
Yeah.
we're gonna have a bit of deja vu.
Yeah, so the next problem we have to overcome is normally the game expects you to go grab the bomb bag and then take it through this tunnel in the northeast part of the dungeon, cut some ropes on a bridge, and then push some pegs in the central bridge to raise it up to access the rest of the dungeon. But we can't do that. Even if we somehow could get the bomb bag without having to deal with the problem of skipping the B-wheel earlier, we wouldn't have a way, we wouldn't have Beetle, so we wouldn't have a way of getting all the way over to the other peg to push. So we need to do more back in time to rectify that.
I think this is also a pretty good opportunity to talk about the fact that we are setting the exact same flag we were setting during the previous RBM, but the way that these sort of like equating one flag to another things work is that it's things that are saved in the same location in memory. Oh, hey, look, a bridge. Oh, hey, look, you're standing on lava. Neat. Oh.
Nice.
Anyway, but the way that these things kind of work is that it depends on where the flags are saved in memory. So the flag for pushing that gravestone, which would usually unlock the pathway to Betrow's house, it is saved in the same place on Skyloft that on Eldin Volcano, the outside Eldin map, has whether or not the Earth Temple door is open. So it sets the flag that's in that location, which opened the Earth Temple door. But we're not on the Earth Temple, or we're not on the, outside Elden Volcano map anymore. We're on the Earth Temple map. And Earth Temple goes, hey, did you push these pegs in the same spot conveniently that the Elden Volcano map put whether or not that door was open, and Skyloft put gravestone. So you wind up with deja vu strats.
Yeah, like imagine you have like a set of like identical like let's say you have identical companies and like you go to one and then and they all have like people with identical names somehow. And you ask one, hey, can you ask Steve to file this for me? And Skyloft, Steve is responsible for pushing that gravestone. Elden Volcano, Steve is responsible for opening up the Earth Temple. And in Earth Temple, Steve is responsible for having those pegs pushed in. So you tell Steve to do one thing, but instead of doing it on Skyloft, you do it wherever you're saved. I remember to safety save here, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
very
what
good
happens
idea.
when you don't chew your meatball before you try to swallow it.
That's true. It
Yeah, and we're
comes
gonna have
to
to deal-
life and tries to step on you with its Danny Longlegs legs.
Yeah, we're gonna have to deal with the consequences here.
This is why I'm a vegetarian. D, by the way.
E, by the way. I can't believe the developers of Skyward Sword predicted Skyward Sword HD with
I
the
was
first
just
two,
about to say, they told us the whole time!
with the first two boss keys.
It even predicted the game that came after this, Hyrule Warriors.
True.
Exactly.
Yeah,
We don't
so you'll
just see-
notice in places where I'm going into first person before entering a cutscene trigger, and in that case, I skipped a 1.5 camera pan. Just one of those, like, kind of really small things. But yeah, so we're heading into the boss fight for this dungeon, which I will let one of you explain.
Yeah,
Go for it.
so the problem that we're running into here is that we don't have the bomb bag, and this boss is basically a rehash of King Dodongo. Like you're intended to use the bombs from your bomb bag to get him to swallow them, and then he becomes vulnerable. But we don't have those. However, at the top of the arena, so that you don't ever run out, there are some bomb flowers that will spawn renewable bombs that you can use. And it turns out that because Scaldera will keep climbing up this arena, he will eventually get close enough that you can just use these bombs on their own. And because we have the Skyward Strike from Hero Mode, we can do enough damage in this state.
Okay. Not sure what did... So that Skyward Strike missed, I think.
Yeah,
I think
it should
that
be
just
fine.
happens if
Yeah.
if you try to attack in his eyes in the center with the Skyward Strike.
Yeah, unfortunately his armor is not always where it looks visually. So sometimes... Oh, he is still hungry for bombs. That's okay. So sometimes one of those attacks will miss, specifically when he's in the center. So we are currently just trying to transition him into the second phase of the fight, but ideally do so in a specific way that he will never actually leave his vulnerability. So that should be good. So despite the fact that he is rolling and wiggling everywhere right now, he is actually still vulnerable, and with a nicely timed Skyward Strike, let's see. Oh,
I think because because the Skyward Strike missed and he sort of timed out, um, like he sort of flared up on his own rather than from taking too
Yeah,
much
I'm gonna give
damage.
it one more shot. Okay,
Yeah, unfortunately. Um, but that's what we safety saved for. So this would be a soft lock, unfortunately. But since we safety saved, we can just go back and try the fight again real quick. Um, yeah, ideally, if you don't leave him alone for any length of time, he will maintain vulnerability. Otherwise, you run into an issue because once he transitions into the second half of the fight, he wants to go up to a specific point in the stage that is not all the way at the top and then try to roll back down at you. And the problem with that is that he's never going to go up and step on the bombs again, and he's never gonna let you hit him with one of the bombs that are at the top of the stage. He wants to stay down at the bottom of the stage. He's just not going to go back up there. So dragging his vulnerability is kind of our way around the fact that the game really expects you to be able to pick up those bombs and put them in your pocket for safekeeping.
yeah. Basically, yeah, because what happened was at the very start of the first phase, what that Skyward Strike missed, and it kind of threw off the amount of damage I wanted for the rest of the fight. But we go again.
If that ends up happening again, I think what you can do is just do a slash and then a spin attack.
Right,
Because
yeah.
that should also be enough damage. But hopefully, it'll be nice this time and position the eye in a spot where you aren't at risk of missing. There we go.
But he picked, honestly, some of my favorite RNG. Some of my favorite RNG being anything but the middle.
Yeah, and it also happens that the second position of the eye is always the same as the first, so you don't have to worry about the RNG for that part at least.
Also, very nice. We are, in fact, also damaging down at this moment. Very nice snipe.
Nice.
So the optimal way to damage down, 64 nicely demonstrated for us, was to, instead of getting stepped on by a meatball, run yourself sideways into his back.
Yeah, that'll basically cause him to immediately start rolling down instead of going up with like the tall legs and going up to where the bombs are, which just makes it a little bit faster. Although it is kind of scary dealing with the movement because you have to roll to put out the fire, because if you take fire damage while you have a Skyward Strike charged, it'll get rid of the charge. And start charging a Skyward Strike, which means you can't be sprinting. Fortunately, because the Skyward Strike is so long range, it's not too big of a deal, but it does definitely look kind of scary.
But that is going to complete our second dungeon and also the last dungeon of the run. Did y'all know that Skyward Sword only has 2 dungeons?
I was just about to be like, it feels interesting to me that we're 40 minutes away from the end of the run, and it doesn't feel like we're very far into the game. And I was just about to bring that up, so do tell.
Yeah, it turns out that Lanayru has some things that can completely break the game open. And the only prerequisites for getting there is getting the Amber Tablet, which means you have to complete this dungeon. And the only way to get to this dungeon is to complete Skyview first. If we had a way to somehow get into Lanayru without doing that, the run would be even shorter.
So it's the 3-step speed run. Step 1, finish the first dungeon. Step 2, finish the second dungeon. Step 3, finish the rest of the speed run.
Okay,
Yeah.
so step 3, I will say, step 3 is not quite finish the rest of the speed run. It's play funny mini games and also finish the rest of the speed run.
Draw the rest of the owl.
While playing funny mini games. The mini games are an important part.
I see. We're not gonna fall up the ladder of success. We're gonna slam our forehead against every rung on the way.
Yeah, so for this back in time, we're going to be doing something similar to the start, where we applied the Farron pillar to the file that we're starting. But this time, we want to do it with the Amber tablet, so we get Laneru. However, when you load into back in time, and even when you select any files, you don't natively have any items unless you change your item counts somehow. So if you noticed, he picked up a rupee earlier with file 3. That basically means that all of the inventory data from file 3, including notably this tablet, are now loaded into back in time. You have to do that manually, it doesn't just come automatically, but thankfully, because we can get rupees from those trees, it's not that big of a deal. And now file 3 has served its purpose, and we're going to start playing on file 1 again.
Yep. And then file 1 is saved on the surface, because way back before Skyview, we saved it at this statue, and that means we can use the statue to get to the sky, and the game's just going to automatically mount us on our Loftwing, even though we never rescued the Loftwing on this file.
Yeah, if file 1 were still on Skyloft, we would kind of be stuck. Like, our only way out would be to get it back onto the surface and then fly out from a statue, because we haven't actually saved the Loftwing. Because it was during the RBW into Skyview, we copied file 3 over file 1, and file 3 was the copy that we made early on, just before saving the Loftwing. It's a lot to keep track of, but it's verifiably correct here.
Yep, so now this is like the only actual, like, straight up Loftwing flying segment of the run. So we're just gonna fly into the Laneru pillar, and this is gonna start us off at the introductor. Like, this is the standard introductory area in Laneru, called the Laneru Mine. Everyone calls it mines, but if you actually check the text, it's singular.
There's no S?
Yeah, no. That bothered me for so long, because in, like, the randomizer, the region was officially called Mines for a while before it was corrected. Shout out also to Molderak being spelled incorrectly for a while.
Oh my god, we don't even know how to spell things in this game. Incredible.
Yeah, so we've talked a couple times about reverse bit warps, and you might be wondering, well, does that mean there's a non-reverse bit warp? And in fact, there is. The regular bit warp happens when you save at a statue in back in time and start at the same time, and it applies the coordinates of that statue to wherever you're saved. So we want to use one of the Skyloft statues to get out of bounds in Laneru. For earlier instances of back in time, we could bonk a file to open up that gate there, but we no longer have the ability to do that, just because we don't have files saved in the right space, so we have to take a page out of the very first back in time and just void out to get past that gate.
I keep hearing it as reverse bid war, and I'm like, what? So you tell us what file name you want and then pay us?
I will pay you to name Link Uwu. I don't have any money, but I do have hugs. Would you like one?
Yeah, so we are very far out of bounds right now. Like, so far, when you initially spawn in, if you were to open the map, you would, like, your cursor showing where you are would be off the edge of the screen.
Nah, my dad told me this is the route he took to walk to school each day.
Oh yeah, uphill both ways.
Yep.
we're quite lucky that there's even collision all the way over here. They really didn't have to do this because you're never going to be over here. But thankfully, there's enough that we can just run all the way over to here. And this is the Laneru Caves. You're normally supposed to go here after you get the claw shots in the...
Oh, are we sure it's caves and not Laneru Cave?
It is actually called Laneru Caves. Despite the fact that there's only one cave. That doesn't really make sense, but whatever.
Anyway, welcome to Laneru Gorge. This is a very late game area and is normally where you would go when you are trying to rescue the Thunder Dragon. And here, instead of meeting the Thunder Dragon immediately, we're gonna meet my best friend. This is a cactus. Hello, cactus. Goodbye, cactus. We have
so
died.
Yeah. So now we're going to see a fairly recent trick in Skyward Sword called Fast Fair and Bit. Our file that we saved in Earth Temple, we happen to have a flag that has a cutscene that will be activated. Actually, multiple cutscenes that will be queued up when I bonk this tree. The second one would softlock if I allowed it to play, but by swapping to a different file, I prevent the softlock, but I still get the useful flag and I load in the Loftwing. And so that saves a lot of time over having to run to the statue, save, and then run over to the platform.
And believe it or not, in other categories, there's an even faster version of this trick that we, for whatever reason, also just call Fast Fair and Bit.
Yeah,
but it
the other
uses the
one
same
is
concept.
Yeah, the other one is like faster or fastest fair and bit, because I don't think, because it basically in those categories you can basically get it so that you can load the Loftwing flag on the starting platform and just immediately jump off.
Yeah, so having access to that cutscene that's normally detrimental, like if we can make the game think that it's playing without actually playing it, we can load in story flags, including the Loftwing, and it's faster to do that than to go to a statue and save, which is previously what we had to do.
Yeah. Oh wait, this is not the right file.
I was also gonna say just that. So the funny mini games is haha, good joke, but also is actually what we're going to be doing. We are currently actually trying to rescue the Thunder Dragon, not because we are trying to complete the Song of the Hero, which is, you know, what you would normally interact with the Thunder Dragon for, but because we are trying to access the Boss Rush minigame. And in order to do that, we have to set a couple of flags. Oh my goodness, it's the thing we've been doing this entire run.
Yeah. So by the way, if you were paying attention in the background there, you would have seen that a rock blew up. That is what the RBM that I just did.
Yeah, essentially, you're intended to use the hook beetle or your own bombs to blow up that rock so that the minecart can progress to the end of the track, but we don't have either of those, so we need to get it out of the way somehow. The other problem is that because we're here at the gorge way before the game expects us to be here, there's almost nothing loaded in, including anything that we need to like start the escort normally, and even if we could, A, it's very slow, and B, it requires a lot more items like the claw shots, which we don't have. So we need to find some other way to complete the escort. It turns out that there is a flag corresponding to having the minecart all the way at the end of the track, and it would be very easy to just use an RBM to set that, but unfortunately that's not enough actually. So instead of setting that flag directly, we have to get to the previous part and have the minecart naturally go to the center to like have the proper story progression set. So what we're aiming to do is set a flag that in the game means that the escort has started, and the minecart will like move if it's at certain points, and then also somehow complete it without items, and we'll see that shortly.
Yeah, so we're gonna be seeing someone in this game who was alluded to earlier. When after Skyview, we skipped a cutscene with Machi, and it was mentioned that, like, in the game, normally you're expected to rescue Machi before entering Skyview. And since I now entered Farron Woods on our second file, we have this Bakoble encounter and Machi here.
Yeah, behold a rarity in this category. Normal combat. We don't really do it. But with the powered up Skyward Strike, oh, hold on. The Kikwi will now speak. Thank you, Kikwi. But with the powered up Skyward Strike, if you run away from those Bokos and then turn around and hit them with a Skyward Strike, as long as you hit them with the projectile, which is the powered up part of it, and not the blade, you just one-shot them. It's very, very fast. And too bad we don't have to do any other normal combat in this entire run.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Cactus.
Yeah, shoutouts to my favorite category, 100%, where we get to do all the normal combat, in addition to a ton of crazy back in time stuff.
I hope you all have enjoyed the title screen, because unless something goes catastrophically wrong, this should be the final back in time sequence of the run.
Well,
There's one more after this.
Oh, one more after this. Oh, sorry. Oh, you're correct. I lost count. I can't count. Good job.
Yeah, so it happens that in the Laniru Gorge, this same bird statue is also useful for its coordinates. It's honestly kind of surprising how useful the Upper Academy statue is relative to the other ones in various regions.
The run's being useless.
I think it's mainly just the fact that it's probably the highest. Yeah, it's the highest elevation one on Skyloft, so.
Yeah, I think that's a large part of it, and it just happens to I don't know, yeah, just relative to all the other maps, it just happened to wind up in a very useful position, which is very fortunate for us. Shoutouts to pre-2019 when half the tricks in the run were bit warp at the Upper Academy statue.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier while in Linear Mine that there's a lot of collision to work with, and while there is out of bounds collision here, it's not infinite, and we have to like perform a somewhat precise jump there that you got first try. Very nice.
Yeah,
we need to clear a gap. We have to have a very specific position for it to work.
Yeah, that jump is, can sometimes just decide it doesn't want to work. Just like, yeah, this is the right position. Yeah. I do need to be somewhat careful here, because if I were to die, I would lose that minecart flag, and I would have to do the RBM all over again. And then I did a trick called the brake slide, where I basically held back on the control stick and targeted, and that allowed me to preserve my momentum in the sink sand.
Yeah, and during the minecart
earlier. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I was gonna say, we were talking earlier about tricks being shared with other Zelda games. That's the only time we use a brake slide in this run, but they're all over the Skyward Sword HD speedrun. They're also all over other Zelda games, and we actually share other Zelda games sort of language for talking about the way that you move the control stick. There is usually referred to as ESS positioning, which extended super slide, or ESS, is not a thing in this run. It is a thing in, what, Ocarina of Time, and also ESS positioning just does something in, like, every single Zelda for some reason.
I don't think it does anything in Breath of the Wild, but it might be wrong.
It might not. Oh, who knows? Breath of the Wild is magic.
It's a thing in the classic 3D Zelda games, if you want to call them that.
Yeah, so then you saw that the ground kind of shook as the minecart went into the center there. Yeah, gotta make sure that the ground shakes and then save. Otherwise, I will be very sad after doing this RBM.
Yeah, we kind of glossed over earlier what happened. Basically, at various points in the escort, the game has it set up where if you void out, it needs to like restart you somewhere, but it's not going to restart you all the way over at the start because that would be very frustrating if you voided out near the end. So there are a couple of like pseudo checkpoints to work with. So what we did was we navigated to one of those checkpoints from out of bounds, voided out, and that put both us and the minecart on like the last stretch of the escort that we can just watch it progress on its own.
So yeah, this final back in time that we're doing, what we need to do is we need to revive the Thunder Dragon. So basically this is going to require us to go all the way to Deep Woods, and it's going to be very similar to what we did to get into Skyview, but we're just going to be starting our file at a different point in that sequence of cutscenes entering Skyview Temple.
Wait a minute. Rescuing a dragon? Are you sure this isn't Tears of the Kingdom?
This
It's
is
Tears of
like
the Kingdom version 0.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
thought
exactly.
the Kingdom was Skyward Sword.
Tears of the Kingdom is Skyward Sword 2. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You
That's why
all
they
thought
brought
you thought
the
it was
dragons back.
you thought it was Breath of the Wild 2? No.
They just changed the name to Breath of the Wild 2 because they thought it would market better. It's actually Skyward Sword Part 2.
I want a sequel to Twilight Princess. I miss that game.
Hopefully, they eventually go back to that sort of traditional formula.
We can all dream, right? So just like that first Farron bit interaction, 64 is once again going to reload the map for exactly the same purpose, which is bringing down that vine. Thank you, Rhina, for letting us enter your house randomly and lower this vine.
Well, actually,
and yes.
This time, it's the fact that the minecart clicked into place very conveniently lines up with this vine being down.
Oh, true.
Since we reloaded with file 1 this time.
This is true. I've been saying this wrong for forever. But that does make sense. But yeah, we will make our way one final time into Deep Woods, and after this, commentary is probably going to get a little bit intense. So, and any final messages for us while we make our way through Deep Woods?
I figure it's interesting for folks to know that this year, True Colors United, which is the charity that we are supporting through this marathon, is assisting their regional shelter partners around deportation raids and the rights of young people who are seeking services, pushing back on the federal government's DEI bans and advocating for HUD funding that directly supports young people experiencing homelessness, and they're pushing for new protection legislation in support of young people experiencing homelessness, despite many challenges in Congress. And so your support during this marathon is more important than ever and deeply appreciated. It goes without saying that there's been a lot of recent events happening that have been cause for concern, and your support through your donations is helping to raise money for a charity that is actively working against a lot of those things that seek to harm our communities. So thank you, everyone who has been helping to raise awareness, and especially those of you who are in a position where you can donate finances to help a great cause. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, so now that we revived the Thunder Dragon, we're going to be entering, or we're going to be starting the boss rush mini game. And you might be thinking, so, okay, so what are we doing in this mini game? So we're going to enter the Girahim 3 fight, and then I'm going to let Yal describe what's about to happen here. Because Yal was the one who discovered this trick that saves about 10 minutes in this category and like 45 minutes or something in HD.
Yeah, so essentially around a year before that discovery, which was itself around, wow, 3 years ago at this point, um, uh, we figured out that it's possible to clip through the fence at the bottom of this arena to get out of bounds, but there's unfortunately nothing useful you could do with it because there is a bird statue on the outside, but there's an invisible wall between where you could jump out and where the statue is. So we had no way of getting down there, but later I figured out that so in this fight what's supposed to happen is these platforms that Girahim spawns in are supposed to like sort of rise up and go to the default position and reset back to the center. But if you hang on to the ledge and after knocking him down, just let him get back up, his own platform will move horizontally to the center before it starts rising up vertically. And if you knock him off fast enough, it means that the platform never rises back up. And because you keep knocking him down, they keep getting farther and farther down. Normally, there is a void plane that prevents you from like going all the way down. Unfortunately,
Kirky was feeling sassy.
yeah, he quite aggressive there, but
You got
you can
socked.
simply
Like that was a punch he threw.
Oh yeah.
simply retry here. But essentially, normally there is a void plane that prevents you from landing down at the ground. But the position of that void plane is relative to where Girahim's lower platform is, so if we get these platforms low enough, it drops down below the floor. Now, the way that we're going to make use of that is there are walls blocking the statue, which is like a save statue that you're intended to use to save like before demise at the end of the game. But it exists here as well. There are walls on like every side, but there's no ceiling covering it. So if we can get these platforms low enough, we can simply jump down to the statue from above and then save. And you'll see what saving and reloading does shortly once we get there.
Yeah, the important thing to remember here is that we're not actually trying to kill Girahim 3 because this is the boss rush minigame, and if you were to kill Girahim 3, it would stop the timer at the top and tell you, good job, you beat the minigame! Huzzah!
Do you want to do another one for a slightly more handsome prize?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure some of them, like if you do multiple in a row in this game state, it crashes. So we don't want to do that. So instead, we are not actually doing him any damage at the moment. You would have to jump and do the finishing blow to deal him damage during this part of the fight, and we are intentionally not doing that because we don't want him to get angrier. We just want him to fall down so we can silly dangle more.
Yeah, we're fortunate, like, when you deal damage later on, he has, like, an extra wrinkle to his defense where when he's near the edge, he'll pull out these, like,
Very
purple
nice.
hands that'll slow you down. Also nicely done. We're lucky that that doesn't happen on the first phase because it would either be very precise or probably impossible to... You'd probably have to do, like, 4 knockdowns instead of 3.
So we
Yeah.
have performed the save and quit and the reload, which succeeds in reloading the map, and you might notice once we load back in that there is something missing from the screen. Oh my goodness, the timer is gone, and that's because we are no longer in the minigame, we are in the actual Girahim 3 fight, so this is where things get real. And this is where we put our butt against a wall, because reminder, there are invisible walls on the other side of this, so we cannot just run up the spiral. We would like to slide up wall, on booty, in bounds. Link, this trick can be a little bit sassy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this
I believe
trick,
in you, Link.
unfortunately, like, you either get it first try or, like, 10th.
Yep,
And it's looking like 10th for me.
Don't worry,
they're-
don't worry, just...
Like, we're
Stack up.
outside the minigame, but we still were saved at the statue. So,
Yeah.
like, the game, like, Girahim is way up into the sky. And, but we're down here, and we need to somehow get up to him to actually complete the fight. And also, normally in this game, the target radius is, like, fairly reasonable, unlike some earlier 3D Zelda games. But in this fight specifically, the radius for which you can target Girahim is enormous, so
Yeah,
normally
it's
you'd like to
ridiculous.
use, like, the Z button to turn around the camera, but it's not really feasible because you'll just target Girahim instead.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
the other annoying thing is that basically when I get knocked out of first person here, it's like moving my center into the lower corner where I'm okay, there we go.
There we
That
go,
took
there we go. Oh,
Hey,
up and over.
nice.
A
All right,
little
so
bit
now-
too long. Yep.
As
okay.
Yell said,
It's one
oop,
more.
one more.
over.
Yep.
Yeah,
As Yell said, this one fence post has a tiny crack in the wall. It's like a pixel or two wide, but with a nice setup, we can shove Link through it. He's like a pixel wide, right? But as we said, Girahim is at the top of the stage. He is not anywhere to be seen. So, when you don't know what to do in order to spawn the boss in front of you, I suggest doing some cardio. Link is going to go for a run. He's going to run up the spiral, because maybe eventually he'll figure out how to respawn Girahim. And somewhere right about here is when he's going to have a shift in his day, which is that he can fall through the floor. So that's that void plane that we were talking about earlier, and it has respawned you and Girahim out of bounds. Now, importantly, we cannot deal him damage out of bounds because it will cause the game to get very angry and crash. So we will be pushing Girahim back inbounds. It's okay, he does not
Well,
care about flooring.
As close to inbounds as we can get from here.
Yep.
The important
We're
part is we
off.
need for him to be on one of his own platforms, so that, like, the game can properly, like, get rid of the other one and then start moving it.
Yes, so we can, that finishing blow, because we have this massive target radius, lets us jump way over the wall. He is getting slippy slidey, don't worry about it. And we can now be in the arena with Girahim. We can deal him damage. Fun fact, dealing Girahim damage is one of the few crashes that is shared between both Skyward Sword HD and SD. You can break that in HD too.
Yeah,
Um,
because this like escape trick works pretty much the same way in HD.
Of all the Zelda games, this is one of them.
It sure is.
Yep.
But this is commonly called the Girahim 3.2 fight, because we're fighting Girahim again, but for realsies this time. And now is where is actually one of the hardest tricks in the run. Luckily there are many backups for this section. One of the methods of doing it is what 64 is doing, which is home buffering inputs in order to make a very tight frame window to do skyward stabs in order to stun lock the boss. Skyward stabs, fun fact, exist.
That thing that exists. Yep.
Yeah. Girahim's feeling a little bit sassy. Now, optimally, if we hadn't failed Girahim 3 escape once, we would be at half a heart right now, and oh, a little bit off.
Which is the without guardian
but-
potions, the minimum health you can be at on hero mode.
But because his attacks all do a half a heart or more, normally this would be a one-hit KO, but thankfully we have a bit of wiggle room because we took the scenic route, which for marathon safety is not at all a bad thing.
You might also
Yeah, what's that?
you might also notice that this is kind of taking a little while.
Yeah.
So um, normally this is like as the second to last fight in the game, you're expected to have the true Master Sword, um, which does 4 times more damage than the Goddess Sword. So we have to do 4 times as many hits to complete this fight, at least in this phase. It's normally 7 steps to transition from one phase to another. It's 28 now.
You wretched brat!
I swear
and
that
now
is what
he's-
she's saying. I think I don't speak Japanese.
That's what the localizers think.
Yes.
Now it brings out the giant sword.
I heard it
and-
roughly translates to, have you heard about the critically acclaimed final?
But yeah, this portion of the fight is we've gotten past the difficult strat with the tight window, and instead we're just continuing the marathon. This is not very difficult, but it is a lot of hits, because once again, we have the first sword that has the Goddess Strike, or the Skyward Strike as a option. We have a glorified toothpick. It takes a while. This
And
fight
we could
is
have the practice
oddly
sword.
stressful.
This could be way worse.
It could be. Oh god, it could be. But welcome to actually the final boss of the game.
Yeah, so since we exited the minigame and we completed Gear Him 3, it's just like you did it normally at the end of the game, and now we can go fight the final boss.
Okay, so Demise is a fairly scripted fight, so it's just basically getting in the right sequence of inputs where I can have attacks that he'll block a bunch of attacks until I can get one through. And
Very
yeah.
nice.
Now the second phase, I'm gonna backflip a couple times, wait for him to charge, and then backflip his charge and spin attack to knock him down again.
It's a shame you don't have flash.
And then I'm gonna grab lightning. Time is coming up. And time.
GG's.
That was clean.
Yeah, and one kind of final note about the Demise fight too. So it's the amount of damage that, unlike Girahim 3, where it was hit based, Demise is actually damage based. So other way around. It's hit based, so it doesn't actually matter the strength of the sword. But the fact that the Goddess Sword is shorter does make the fight a little bit more difficult, because you have to stand closer to Demise than you think you would. But
It's interesting that the swords, the length of their model is actually recognized in game and affects the melee distance.
Yeah, I mean, the game actually, if you in the Bamboo Island minigame, I think Peter actually mentions that in some of his texts, that he says something about come back later if you have a longer sword, and you might have an easier time with this minigame. I'm not sure that that's actually the case, but
I think I that sounds vaguely familiar. And also in this fight, when you charge the lightning on your sword, because it expects you to have the true Master Sword, it's larger than the model of the sword that you currently have, which is kind of funny.
But yeah, that was Skyward Sword. All of it, more or less.
You skipped
Congratulations!
just a little.
This game only had 2 dungeons, right? 7? 7.
7 is basically 2 on an astronomical scale.
Yeah, exactly. Same difference.
yep. Yeah, it has 2 dungeons if you're an any percent runner. It has 7 dungeons if you're an all dungeons or 100% runner. Uh,
Oh,
It has 4 if you're restricted bit. It has 6 if you're playing HD.
yeah.
any shout outs, last bits of commentary, recommendations, advice to folks who are interested in the game because of this?
Yeah, so I'll start. Yeah, so if you're interested in this game, there is a Discord for it that you can join. Has all the resources to get started, and it's the same Discord for the Wii version and the HD version. The HD version is kind of its own unique speedrun because HD does not have the back in time glitch, but there's also some really cool tech that's unique to the HD version. Uh, and then so you can find the Discord, I think, at zeldaspeedruns.com/discords. And then for shout outs, the shout outs I want to give. So Gymnast86, he back in 2019 discovered like halfway by accident reverse bit magic, and that revolutionized Skyward Sword speedrunning. Prior to that, any percent was 5 hours, and now the time has gone down significantly. And also, we have 2 glitch hunters in the community, Azer and Copernicus, who have done so much work in finding other random glitches, finding other uses for back in time, and doing a lot of the routing work. Like Azer, I think, was instrumental in like figuring out how to route all this stuff, and also some of the other categories. And then also Yal on commentary, he discovered G3 Escape. He also has been tirelessly working on a new SS Practice ROM, which is in its infancy but already extremely useful. Has so much functionality that makes just practice and learning things easier.
Yeah, like I think if you want to get into this game, now is like a really good time to do it. Been aiming to have like features like pseudo save states, practice save loading, and all that. And again, that can be found linked in the Discord, and also as a resource on the speedrun.com page for this game at speedrun.com/LOZSS. We actually, as a fun fact, just the normal like abbreviation, we were beat by Paper Mario Sticker Star. They chose that slug first, so we got stuck with LOZ at the start. But yeah.
Yeah. So anything else, Pippi or Yal, that you want to mention before we sign off?
Thank you everyone for watching.
Yeah, thanks.
Play Skyward
tuning
Sword.
in.
It's really fun.
Yeah, please.
I haven't
overdue.
found anything in this game that's remotely useful, and yet I've been enjoying it for some reason for like 3 years. Please, come goof around with motion controls with us. It's a
I
good
owe
there's,
time.
this game a playthrough. I stopped right near the end of Twilight Princess, and I owe this game my time.
Yeah, even in like a speedrunning sense, if you, aside from any percent, you've got like 2 choices in mid-length categories, and then like 100% it's its own unique thing.
Or you can do what I did this week and speedrun 4 heart pieces.
Yep.
It's 25 minutes. It's not useful.
Your bowl.
All right. I can get one more round of applause for everyone involved in this run. Once again, that was 64-bit Link, your average Link, and Pippi in a top hat. I love those names. Pippi in a top hat. Major congratulations. Thank you for bringing this in front of audiences once again. Chat, you are watching Power Up with Pride 2025, benefiting True Colors United. You can always donate by using !donate in chat, and check out the schedule using !schedule. That is important because, unfortunately for me, that is all the time I've got. Now it's time for me to settle in with Animal Crossing New Horizons on my Nintendo Switch 2, but I'm still going to be watching this marathon in the background, and I am very, very excited to be coming back for a little bit more hosting tomorrow. So if you are a fan of Pokemon trading card game on the Game Boy Color or Cassette Beasts, I hope you'll stick around. I hope you stick around for all of these games. I am always excited to see what new games I'll discover or even games I'll end up buying. Special reminder before I go, we do have that bid war open for Uncanny Cat Golf that I recommend you all contribute to because we're only 2 games away from that bid war closing. And we also have that incentive open for Repo, last loser standing, currently at 57.76 out of 350. And if you'll grant one wish of mine tonight, it would be for us to hit that incentive in time for the end of the run. With that said, chat, I'm off for tonight. I love you all very much. Thank you so much for showing your love and support for a community that really can use it during a time when it needs it more than ever. And I'll see you tomorrow.
Good evening, Power Up with Pride 2025. It's your girl, Professor Birch, back here again for another hosting shift. And I feel kind of great with this next sort of little block we have, getting to introduce you to what I'm calling the comfy but chaotic block. We got some games like Banjo-Kazooie, Nuts and Bolts. We got Looney Tunes. We got that nostalgia going. We're feeling very nostalgic about our old gaming days. But it's also a little wacky, a little out there.